You are so smart. Before buying land, you chose to watch this video. Let's save you some heartache and some money by learning from the mistakes of others.
Number one rule in real estate is a rule for a reason, and that is location, location, location. Look at this. You're gonna be able to move those mountain views anywhere you want. It's not possible. So when you're thinking about location, yes, you wanna think about views, and you wanna think about amenities, and you wanna think about proximity to healthcare or grocery stores, or whatever it is that you might need to be nearby. Maybe it's family. Those are all really important when you're thinking about location. Another thing to think about is scarcity. Limited resources and limited land. That location, that scarcity is valuable. And you want to think about that because ultimately this property is going to sell again. I will always want you to be thinking about resale. Anytime you buy something, is it going to hold its value and what's the resale going to look like? That's huge. Before you buy any piece of property, you need to get boots on the ground. And yes, I'm talking about getting some boots that can get messy. There are apps like OnX, or you can download the Plat Map to make sure that you are walking the boundary of the property. That's key. This parcel happens to be 40 acres. So you could walk around the middle and think, hey, this is a really great deal. And then you go and you walk towards the edge of the property and it might be lined with trash. See, here you go. Perfect example of that. Look at this trash. If you wouldn't have walked the property, you wouldn't know that this trash was here, and you'd have to assume responsibility for that. In addition, you want to look closely at what the trash is. It's food. Somebody had been living here. So you really need to think about, hey, if I buy this property, are people used to living here? Are they going to come back? In many states, those people will have rights, and it'll be a struggle for you to evict them. Really make sure you get boots on the ground and walk the entire property. Another thing you need to be thinking about is water and water source. There's runoff here. It is possible that you could use this spring as a water source for your house. Or maybe you're more interested in drilling a well. This is a clue that maybe there's some good groundwater here because there's a lot of water sitting on the aquifer. You can also call local well drilling companies and ask them about specific areas. Give them the address. Let them look it up in their system and see if they've recently drilled wells nearby and what it looked like, what the cost was. They can come up with great estimates for you. Also, make sure that if there is a well, that you test the well flow. And additionally, that you test the quality of the water. If there's a stream or a creek or a river or a lake on the property or that abuts the property, you're gonna wanna make sure that you've got some rights. What are your access rights to that? In many states, water rights are given a date. You also may not have water rights for the entire property. So you might want to irrigate or grow some crops. That might be your game plan. But if you don't have rights and access to that water, or you're low on the list, that's going to be a hard lesson to learn after the fact. You want to know that way ahead of time. The next thing I really want you to be thinking about is the zoning. So zoning will impact what you can use the land for. If you plan on building a home, is it zoned RR, rural residential, for instance? How many homes can you put on that lot? Or if it is zoned for timber or forest reserve, can you even build a home on it? I've also seen instances where you can buy land that's in a certain protected zone. For instance, in Oregon, there's a wild and scenic section of the river that you can't build on. You can't just go out and start building with a local county. You've got to get federal, state, and county permission to make sure that you meet all their benchmarks for the environmental needs. And oftentimes they want it to not obstruct the view, to preserve nature. So you got to look at all these layers of zoning. Also check out and make sure that you know if there are CC&Rs on the properties. Those covenants, codes, and restrictions will dictate what you can do. You really need to read the CC&Rs close, and they come as part of the title report, but you've got to specifically request them from your title agency. Make sure you ask for the CC&Rs. Oh, hi there. The next thing I want you to think about is your sewage system. Where does your waste go? For instance, if the property already has a septic tank, how large is it? How many bedrooms was it set for? What are the rules and what's the code? You can contact DEQ for your area or a great vendor who services septic systems. You can call them and you can ask, hey, can you get the DEQ report on this property so that you can see the size? Maybe there is a septic tank installed, but it's set up for 2 bedrooms, and you're thinking you want to build a 12-bedroom house.
That might not be a good idea.
In addition, when you buy that property, make sure that you get the septic tank emptied or pumped. It's customary in our area for the seller to pump their poo. Buyers pay for an inspection. Have it pumped and inspected that same day. Make sure they check the baffles. Make sure that they walk the drain field to look for any indications that people have been driving over it, or there's been heavy equipment or new trees uprooted. Otherwise, you could end up stuck out here in the woods on your own, and that'd be a poopy situation. The next thing I want you to think about is homeowners insurance. So one of the questions you need to ask is, can I get insurance for this land? Can I get it when it's raw land and when I finally built? In many states of the country, we're starting to see this really impact home buyers and home sellers. A great thing to do is to call an insurance broker that you know, give them the address you're thinking about, and have them do some homework and some research. Now, once you do make your purchase, please use those people. Some things that you're going to want to know. How close is the closest fire station? What kind of fire protection services are there? Is it included in your taxes? Is there a local fire department, or do you have to pay extra? Where we live, we have to pay for a subscription service. If there was a fire and we didn't have that subscription, we would be responsible for the entire cost of the firefighting effort for our home and for our neighbors if the fire spreads from us. Insurance is huge. That needs to be one of your first calls, is insurance. You really want to have that on lockdown, and make sure that you speak to a professional. Don't just go online and put in an address and think that whatever online provider is going to be able to do a great job for you. Get a professional. The next thing you're going to want to check are the flood maps. This is a great example of that. See these tire tracks and these tire ruts? Well, it's February and we're out here and there's water in these tracks. That tells me that this property is at a higher risk level for flooding than some of the surrounding areas. It also happens to be down in the valley, so the runoff is coming in this area. This is not a situation you want to think about last minute. You want to get way ahead of this. There are some resources. You can check FEMA. Their flood maps are awesome. You can talk to a lender. Your lender will have resources and access to FEMA maps, and they'll be able to guide you. Don't trust Redfin. Don't trust Zillow. Don't trust some online website that gives it a score out of 10. You want to really do the actual research. Insurance agents will also have some of this information, but you can go directly to the source and use your eyes. If you're out here in the summertime and you see ruts like this and you see rocky area and it looks like runoff has been coming through here, that's probably not where you're going to want to build your home. Also, if you wanted to put a road in here, the moment you pave this or add gravel, it's going to turn into a stream, and you're going to spend a lot of money on this gravel and it's going to get washed away. So these are things you need to think. Another thing I absolutely want you to do is to make sure that you do a thorough title search. Absolutely call a local escrow company or title company and ask them to search the title. You want to know what type of deed is attached to the land. Is it a quitclaim deed or is it a statute warranty deed? I know you're going to want to save some money. Do not cheap out on title insurance. It is worth it. Also, get a title report and read through it carefully. Check for liens, check for judgments, check for any clouds on the title. If you don't know what anything means on the document, search for the information or call the title rep in the title company and they'll help talk you through it. They're really a huge part of your team, and make sure that you engage your escrow and your title company. The other secret sauce trick that I like to use is to go and talk to the neighbors. So even before putting in an offer, sometimes I'll go to the neighbor house and I'll knock on the door and I'll ask them to tell me about the property. In fact, one time I was helping a client buy a property on the river. We went and talked to the neighbor. Turns out the lady had died. It's not a fact that needs to be disclosed. It really scared my client. And as a result of talking to the neighbor, she decided to buy a different property. Talk to the neighbors. The last thing I want you to think about may be the most important, and that is the value. Before you buy a piece of land, I want you to consider what it's worth. And there are a couple ways you can do that. One is by comparing the property to other properties. You're going to look at other properties that have sold with similar attributes and determine a price. And you don't have to pay the list price in this market. Now, if things get crazy again and demand goes through the roof, you might eventually have to do that or pay above again. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But for now, you can negotiate a price, and value is something that the buyer has a lot of say in. If you're going off the grid or you're going to be anywhere where you think you might not have cell phone service, download your maps, download any apps, take screenshots of vital information that you need before you leave. That way when you're out, you can get access to that.